The Unhappy Hour on TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
All right, we're back, and we are with Zak Baris, and we are going to do our 2019 NBA mock draft. Been waiting to do this for weeks, trying to settle on the right time to do it. I think the time is now. I think it's perfect timing too, Zak, because we wanted to do this a week and a half ago, but I think we needed to know what happened with Anthony Davis before we could really have a clear idea of who's drafting where and what they're going to do, and I'm glad we did wait. Let's start with the number one pick. So much has been talked about with him, but let's put it into perspective now what the Pelicans are going to get to do, losing Anthony Davis but having the chance to bring in a transcendental player. Talk about what's going to happen here with David Griffin, the Pelicans, and presumably Zion Williamson.
I mean, the Pelicans are obviously going to take Zion over there. Zion is coming into, here's the thing, he's coming into a tough situation where there's no Anthony Davis anymore. He's going to be expected to do a lot, which is one thing that makes you think a little bit, going, okay, they're asking a lot of him. He's expected to set the world on fire. He's the biggest number one pick to come in since LeBron, in terms of height. This is going to be huge. Is he as good as LeBron? No, we don't know that, but he's an incredible dunker. He's a good defender. Question is, will his body hold up? Is he a guaranteed superstar? I don't think by any means he's a guaranteed superstar, but he's as close as you get in this draft. And that's the one thing I like about him. I do love Zion. I think he's an incredible athlete. And in today's game in positionless basketball, I think he's a perfect fit for it.
The cards certainly aligned. Otherwise, they'd be losing their star or trying to figure out how to keep him and drag this out.
They'll put asses in the seats. That's what he definitely will do in any arena he goes to. Especially in New Orleans on a team. Here's the thing is, too. You have to understand how big this is for the Pelicans. Tom Benson just passed away. You don't know how much longer Gail Benson is going to hold the team for, going into this lottery, seriously. They're probably one of the three worst markets in the NBA besides Memphis and Oklahoma City. It's a tough market to be in New Orleans, and it's a football town right now. It is a tough market to be in right now. So I think, they could have been one of those teams on the verge of moving in the next few years, like in the next 3 to 5 years if they wouldn't have landed Zion. Wow. And they still could be, but I doubt it.
You think they could have been moved up to where? Seattle?
You never know.
Yeah, that's fair. I know Seattle's trying to get him back.
It all depends. Like you said, there's some uncertainty. I know Gail Benson wants to keep the team, but, what happens when a husband passes away, not always, it's not, it could be the Georgia Frontier situation where Georgia Frontier got control of the team, moved them back to their native home in St. Louis, and then they sold the team to Kroenke, and Kroenke moves them back to L.A., even though Kroenke's from Missouri. That was part of the reason, as much as any Rams fan wants to believe that he's the savior of Los Angeles, he's one of the main reasons why the Rams were in St. Louis. He helped bring the Rams back. He helped bring the Rams to St. Louis in the first place. If you didn't know that, look it up.
Yeah, and you look at the Baltimore deal of how the Browns were stolen and starting the franchise.
Al Lerner
and then
played a big role in that.
Exactly. Al Lerner has so much dirt on his
Al
hands.
Lerner's play.
Exactly. So I'm glad he's gone. It doesn't have anything to do with the team anymore. And now that Jimmy Haslam's finally letting somebody with football skills run the team instead of having bums draft Johnny Manziel, but that's for another show on another day. All right, so look, Zion, we're going to find out what kind of guy he is. We know that he's got talent. We know he's larger than life. In fact, some people are kind of worried that he's larger than life and carries around too much weight on him. We'll see. The guy's a big dude. He's a young kid. He's got as much hype as anybody I can remember coming out of college since LeBron. So we'll see if he can anchor that franchise and help him rebuild with the help of
I think he's got
David
a very,
Griffin.
very good general manager in place to help him.
David Griffin.
So I think he's in very, very good position to succeed. Because Griff knows an NBA roster in and out. I don't see it being an issue in New Orleans. I think Griff will get him the talent he needs. And like I said, he's already got good young players to play with in New Orleans. And he's got another top 5 pick that's coming their way, or a top tier talent, one of the two,
right,
is on its way to New Orleans.
Well, let's get to some of those. Let's go down to who you listed as one of the other toughest markets for the NBA. That would be the Memphis Grizzlies, formerly the Vancouver Grizzlies.
That's another thing too is Memphis will be taking John Morant with this pick. They've already said it. Morant's a hell of a player in that Russell Westbrook mode. He can shoot though too. But yeah, what is the longevity of the Memphis, of the Memphis Grizzlies? Here's another thing that's crazy. But is Vancouver primed for a return to NBA action now once you've seen the popularity skyrocket in Canada? Could that be a team on the move in the next 3 to 5 years as well? You look at these small markets and say, okay, we don't need to worry about the Cavs until 2034. And I don't think they're going to be moving. But again, you don't have to worry about them for another 15 years. Until that arena lease expires and either they build a new one or something happens. But you look at the Memphis Grizzlies, they've had struggling with fan support. They have not been able to put superstar talent on the floor. They've been getting good teams on the floor, for years, but they've never been able to stay healthy. And then they signed Chandler Parsons. It's arguably the worst contract in NBA history.
Whew. That's saying something.
They're not really a destination for free agency. It's a small town. It's still wondering why they even have an NBA team in the first place. But, hey, you look at this one, I think Morant's one of those guys who could be a game changer. Look what Russell Westbrook's done for Oklahoma City. He put Oklahoma City on the map, even though they're still one of the 3 smallest markets. They're constantly on national television. He's made Oklahoma City relevant. Sorry, tongue twister.
It's all good.
Made them relevant. He kept them relevant. After Durant left, he got Paul George to stay. So anything can happen when you bring a transcendent superstar. And I think that's what John Morant could be. I also think he could be a huge bust. It always worries me when you look at this guaranteed top talent at the top of every draft. The Markelle Fultzes, the Lonzo Balls. I could just get into this and going Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, where these guys are guaranteed the number 2, number 3 overall pick. And they just don't seem to have the future. And the better picks seem to be, the James Harden of the world, we witnessed Johnny Flynn flame out, Steph Curry at 7. We've witnessed to see guys taking ahead of other guys, and you sit there and wonder, Hasheem Thabeet at number 2, Greg Oden at number 1. It doesn't always mean because it's a guaranteed superstar that anything's a guaranteed. Nothing in the NBA is guaranteed. We've witnessed over the last 5, 6, 7 drafts.
You're right. And we saw...
And that's the thing is, as much as I like Durant, I don't think anybody's a can't-miss prospect in this draft. I mean, I'll say it on paper, but again, this is one of those drafts where at number 8, you could be getting the same talent as you could at number 4. That's the thing. It's all just depends on viability with the team, how they develop their players at this point. Is their dedication to the game? We witnessed a talent like Anthony Bennett was a very good college player. He's a great collegiate player who had horrible habits. Stayed out late at night, wasn't out partying, but had horrible sleep apnea, horrible dietary, habits. Was eating pizza at 2 in the morning. Didn't really care about his future in the NBA, and you look at him, he's playing in the G League now.
Right.
You look at guys, there's no guarantee with the NBA draft. Look at the Lakers. They got talent coming out of Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma. They have late talent better than the early talent, maybe. So they were able to get talent. Teams were able to find talent in the middle of the first round. Look at Paul George. Look at Giannis. There are guys there where you can find talent sometimes where you're taking, all it takes some guys just don't get noticed in college. Some guys just, they don't hit their peak that early. Some of these guys have ultra high ceilings and they don't hit them. Not everyone's a Kyrie Irving. I mean, don't forget, Derek Williams was one of those guys we predicted was an all-star. Derek Williams played out because he got in the wrong situation in Minnesota. Because he was sitting behind Kevin Love.
It happens. Yeah, you're so correct on that. I'd be curious to kind of think about in the first round of the NBA, I guess the NHL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, or NFL, which sport has the biggest potential for busts? I think
it's baseball, obviously, just because there's so many players. I think it's easily baseball.
Okay. I think that should be our question of the day.
Popple going at the top of the MLB draft. That's the thing. Baseball, there's so many levels to get up to the top. Nobody just starts in the major leagues. No one does. We've witnessed guys, superstars like Steve Strasburg, and he's a good pitcher, but he's not a superstar.
I like that.
I was at Strasburg's first game ever, by the way. It was at Jacobs Field. Tickets were going for an absolute fortune to see him pitch.
Really?
Was he good? Yeah. He was real good. I was at Verlander's first start, July 4th in a doubleheader. He pitched the second game of a doubleheader, and the Indians shelled him the first couple innings, and then he got under control, pitched 6 innings. I was at Verlander's career start. I was at Clayton Kershaw's first career start against the Indians in L.A. in 2007, I think it was. Summer 07 or summer 08. It was summer 08. I was at his first start. You don't know with these guys, though. That's the thing, is like when these guys are drafted, don't forget, Trout was drafted at the end of the first round. He wasn't the number 1 overall pick. Lindor wasn't the first overall pick. You see guys come over from all the time, that aren't necessarily first-round picks in baseball. Jim Thome was like a 30th round pick.
Yeah.
That's why baseball has the highest bust rate, because there's so many rounds, and it's too hard to scout everyone. There might just not be film. I think football, the guys are going through a minimum of 3 years of college. So you get to see them. But there's still a bust potential there. There's bust potential in every sport. I think basketball is very hard to judge because you don't know what system someone's going to be playing in or where they're going to go. You looked in Boston, and Boston may have gotten lucky with Gordon Hayward's injury. I hate to say it, but allowed Tatum to start. And Tatum really found his role with Hayward out.
That's a great question.
The Celtics were a better team
Good.
with Tatum than they were with Hayward, with both of them.
Well, and do you think Hayward stays with them? Because I've heard rumblings that he might be on the move.
Hayward, I think it'd be one where they could go and try to move his contract for J.R. Smith to the Cavs.
Wow.
With the 14th pick. If the Cavaliers are really all about acquiring assets and they don't mind scooping up some of their, free agency money for 3 years from now, then yeah, I see them making that move. But I want more than just the 14th pick if I'm the Cavs. But again, what does the Celtics desire to do that? If Kyrie leaves and someone offers Terry Rozier a max deal, what's their urgency to do that? That's what gets me with all these trades. Teams are so quick to trade assets, trade their assets for a contract and then not sign anyone in free agency. We witnessed it with multiple teams where it affects them later. So, I was wondering, I remember coming in your show in summer 16 when all these guys were signing ridiculous deals, Evan Turner, Matthew Dellavedova, all these guys, and I'm sitting here going, what the hell are these guys thinking?
Right.
What the hell are these teams thinking, offering these guys these kind of contracts? These are going to be immediately credible. Remember when we were on here questioning Mozgov and Luol Deng's contract?
Yeah, that hamstring.
In summer of 16, we're like, what are the Lakers doing?
I don't think they knew what they were doing. They were acquiring all this overpriced mid-level talent, and then it took them a while to
I wouldn't
dump.
even put Mozgov and Deng at mid-level talent at those points of their career. Luol Deng was terrible at the Cavs, and then ever since it was downhill. I mean, he was on his last legs at the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers traded for him as a backup to, not getting LeBron back, not bringing LeBron back, and they wound up getting LeBron. They said, sayonara to Luol Deng. And, it just is what it is. But I think I think you look at these teams, they made colossal mistakes. And I think it happens every year in free agency. Very rarely, unless you're sending a top-tier superstar for max money, do these signings in free agency come out to help you. You really have to go through the draft.
Exactly.
Or the mid-level exception.
And we've seen
the Cavaliers are not going to get a superstar at the mid-level going to take a discount to play with a 25-win team. It's not going to happen. They're going to go to the Lakers. They're going to go to the, they're going to go to the Raptors now. They're going to go to the Bucks.
Warriors.
Superstars want to win. They're going to take the mid-level. They're going to take less money to go play with a better team so they can win a ring.
Exactly. No, that is the truth. So let's move over to pick number 3 then. We got Williamson and Morant going. At number 3.
RJ Barrett at number 3.
Locked in.
Could the Knicks be stupid enough and trade this pick? Yes.
Why do you say that? Do you have a hunch that they have their eye on something or something might be brewing?
The Knicks always do something stupid, though, so you never know.
What do you think people are going to be getting in Barrett? Some people think he might turn out to be the best player in this draft.
He could be. I tend to think he could be a lot like, I think his ceiling, I think really hope he becomes Jason Tatum. He's very similar to Tatum. He couldn't shoot that well in college. He was, he's a good mid-level shooter in college. Couldn't shoot the three. Tatum's taken that step. You'd want him to become Jason Tatum.
And how would that pair with the rest of their roster? Is that something?
The rest of their roster is a gut job. It's literally scraps.
Just junk.
I don't think they have any long-term pieces for a championship team on that team. I really don't. You can make the argument that they've got guys. You can make the argument they've got some guys, but I really just don't see anything long term in that team.
Okay. Well,
I really don't.
We'll see how they shape the roster after the chance of picking number 3 in the NBA draft this week. Moving on to number 4, looky, the New Orleans Pelicans. They parlayed the Laker pick.
I think if the Pelicans stay here with that pick, there's a couple things they could do with it. Here's the deal. I don't know if I see them taking Darius Garland just because they already have Lonzo Ball and they already have Drew Holiday on the roster. Does that leave them with DeAndre Hunter? Does it leave them with Jarrett Culver? Like I said, I've said this the whole time, I see New Orleans trading this pick. I see them trading the 4th pick. I don't know to who, but I see them trading the 4th pick. We discussed some options already, who might be on the table, but I see New Orleans trading this pick. I think Griff wants to get a veteran in there, to play with the team. I think he's eyeing the playoffs this year. They're not going to suck that bad where they're going to be picking, where they're going to be on the map for a top 5 pick. They might again just miss the playoffs next year at 35, 36 wins and are looking at a late tier lottery pick again. And who knows, they might strike gold and hit the jackpot again. In this lottery, you have a good chance of doing it.
Yeah, much better than before, at least. So then, for the sake of the draft that we're doing, do you want to pull the best player off the board here, since we don't know who we're projecting is going to trade with him?
The best fit for Cleveland is, I think Cleveland's best fit is Darius Garland. Guy can shoot from Vanderbilt. I think he'd be a great fit. He didn't play in that many games this year, but the guy's got a mean streak. Could turn out to be a top 3 player in this draft. I think Jarrett Culver's another guy who I really like too, but Culver doesn't do anything particularly well. He's a good player. He's not a great player. I don't know how his ceiling is. That's the one thing about him. I just don't know how high his ceiling is. But let's pull out Garland for the Cavs here. Let's say Culver went 4 to the. Let's say Culver, a shooting guard, went 4 to the Pelicans. Let's just say that for now.
Okay.
Like I said, I think you're going to see everything screwed up because I think you're going to see a trade there.
And then if that happens, obviously the different team might take someone like Garland and tweak everything from there. But fine, that'll be the caveat. That'll be the wild card. We'll see how it actually plays out.
Exactly.
So then,
I think you're going to see Hunter. I think you'll see Hunter come up the board in Phoenix. I think you'll see DeAndre Hunter come back. But again, to me, he reminds me of Josh Jackson, who they already have on the roster, who's been kind of a bust. Jackson's one of those guys, he's a 10-5-2 guy. Never really materialized. And I think with Hunter being in Phoenix does not have a point guard. They need Darius Garland to fall to them. Or they need to make a trade and trade that 6th pick for a point guard. So you go and try to pluck John Wall from Washington. This is the big thing. You go and try to play and trade that 6th pick to Phoenix for Lonzo Ball. I think it's something, if Griffin decides he wants to just build through the draft and cut it and say, listen, we're going to draft 4th and 6th, and we'll trade Lonzo Ball for the 6th pick. I think that's another roster move they could do, too. I think there's a bunch of ways that New Orleans can handle this.
If the player that the Suns want is there when the Cavs are picking, maybe the Cavs could swing a deal since we wouldn't need a point guard. Figuring that we'll stick with Sexton.
Here's the thing, though. I think the Cavs will look at Sexton more as a shooting guard in this offense.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In Beeline's offense than they do as a point guard. But there's a lot of situations where anything can occur. I look at it and I say, okay, where do you go from here? What do you do if you're the Phoenix Suns? Phoenix has to get a point guard. Whether they sign Terry Rozier in free agency and they give him a deal that, is larger than he'll necessarily get from Boston, I think that's a move that they're going to put on the table. I think Phoenix is going to make a desperate attempt to try to get a point guard, whether it's they strike out in free agency, they're going to do it through the draft. And I think they're going to try to go again, move this pick so they can pair Devin Booker up and DeAndre Ayton up with a pure point guard. They do not have a point guard on the roster. Don't forget, this is a team that was flush with talent at point guard a few years ago. And then they traded Goran Dragic, they traded Isaiah Thomas, and they traded Brandon Knight. They had 3 all-star point guards just 5 years ago, and they traded all of them.
Now they have 0.
And now they don't have a point guard on the roster.
That's pretty wild, actually, to think about.
They don't have a good point guard on the roster. They have Alfred Payton. So I think Phoenix is in dire need of a point guard. I'd like to see them take Darius Garland there if he's available. If not, you look at Coby White from North Carolina, and I'm not the biggest fan of Coby White.
Okay. But basically, you're going to say they're going to end up with DeAndre Hunter for the sake of this.
Yes, because I'm assuming they're going to sign a point guard in free agency. But honestly, I think this is one of those teams that isn't going to be picking there. I think they're going to trade it for. I think they're going to trade it for a point guard.
Okay, well, let's recap. We got Zion.
I think it could either be Coby White or DeAndre Hunter with this pick. Brian, it's not that I don't like doing the mocks. I have this up on my computer already on a mock that I've done, and then this trade happened the other day. And I'm like, okay, I think a lot banks on what New Orleans is because New Orleans has Drew Holiday and they have Lonzo Ball now.
Right.
I think they could either. I think New Orleans really likes Drew Holiday. I think they really like Lonzo Ball too. But don't be surprised to see Lonzo Ball get dealt in a trade to Phoenix. I don't think it's going to happen, but don't be shocked if it does.
It could make a lot of sense. There's a lot of valid reasons why it could. And look, the wild cards when we're factoring in what a mock draft is, it's the trades. Obviously, we can predict that maybe this will happen, but at the end of the day, we still have to go one through, through the rest of the lottery and assign somebody a pick. So once again, that's another thing to keep our eye on, and we'll see how well this prediction ages after the draft. Recapping, we have Zion to the Pelicans, Morant to the Grizzlies, Barrett to New York, Culver to the Pelicans, Garland to the Cavs, Hunter to the Suns, and then that's going to bring up the Chicago Bulls. Number 7.
Now you look at, so there's Coby White left on the board. There's Cam Reddish. Those are the guys I think that are available at this pick. I don't love Cam Reddish, but let's go ahead and throw Cam Reddish on the Bulls at 7. I think it's a little high for him.
I saw some mocks where he was going to the Cavs at 5.
I don't see the Cavaliers taking him at 5 at all. I think Reddish will go to the Bulls over here at this pick if everything. Listen, I think things are totally going to change in the next week or two. I think you're going to start seeing more trades now that the season's over. You're going to start seeing some other trades happening. Some dominoes are going to fall into place.
Very possible. And I can't.
I don't think at all that we're here saying this is what's going to happen. That's why I feel like there's so much uncertainty because this trade totally destroyed what I had in mind was going to happen.
Well, and that's why I'm so excited to do our post-draft show once all of the dust has settled, if you will, because I expect a lot of wheeling and dealing too.
Now, Coby White could go here too. I don't think the Bulls are enamored with Chris Dunn. There's another one where I see Coby White can go and Coby White falls here. They might like him. So actually, let's put Coby White, the point guard from North Carolina, going over to Chicago. Let's put Coby White here. I don't see Coby White falling past 7 anyway.
Oh, I thought we had Reddish going there. We're going to switch it up to Coby White at 7.
I just looked at it again. I expect the Bulls to try and trade Zach LaVine.
And why do you expect him to be traded? Because
I just don't think they view him as a fit long term, and they haven't gotten anything out of him so far. I think another team feels that they might do better with LaVine. I see LaVine getting moved. I think he's one of those guys. He might try to package his pick. Again, it all depends on the future of Washington. I think that makes a lot. I keep saying Washington. But don't forget, they also offered Masai Ujiri, their general manager job and president of basketball operations. If he becomes, he's going to disrupt whatever's already there.
All right. Well, then we'll keep an eye and see if that happens. We'll have Coby White going to the Bulls then, over at number 7. Leaving us.
And then I think you see Cam Reddish going to the Hawks at 8.
What's he going to do? How's he going to mesh with their young team? You don't like him very much, but
no, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't like his work ethic. I think he's a good player. I just don't love his work ethic.
Yeah.
He got kind of lost in the fold at Duke, behind Zion and RJ. I just don't think it was a good fit for him, and it showed that his work ethic is nowhere near RJ Barrett or Zion Williamson. Those are gym rats. Zion's the kind of guy that's playing pickup games against just nerdy kids at Duke.
Yeah.
Zion's a gym rat. So is RJ Barrett. I don't think it's the same thing with Cam Reddish. I think you have two guys that are extremely dedicated to the game, that were more talented. But when Reddish came in, don't forget, they were supposed to be the 1, 2, and 3 overall picks. I don't think that's the situation where I don't think Reddish blossomed in that offense. This is the guy that chose to sit out in the NCAA tournament when Zion, coming off of that scary-looking injury with his shoe, knowing that he was the number 1 overall pick anyway, look at Zion's dedication. And that's the thing. It almost reminds you of LeBron. How dedicated he is, no matter what, plays through the pain, he comes in, doesn't want to hear it. And LeBron rushed himself back early from injury, too. Zion just has that LeBron mentality. He does. And that's the one thing I think why Zion's going to be a great player, because of his mentality with the game. And I think the same thing with RJ Barrett. Their need for always wanting to get better. These guys are always constantly in the gym. And I don't see the same thing with Reddish. I don't think Reddish cares as much. And again, that's getting back to the whole Anthony Bennett thing.
Exactly.
It's not a matter of talent. It's a matter of dedication to the game. I just don't think it's there. So that's why I see there being an issue. So next up, you go to the Wizards, and I have them taking, he's a small forward from France, Sekou Doumbouya. I've seen him play a couple times on film. I think right now that's who the Wizards take. Granted, I think they're going to totally shake up their roster. I do think they will trade John Wall or Brad Beal. I do see that happening, one of the two, especially if Ujiri comes in there. They'll shake things up because what's happened, the Wizards they've got some talented pieces, but they do not fit well together. So you'll see the Wizards shake things up this offseason.
So, I mean, maybe would the Wizards be able to jump from where they're at to go up to number 4 and switch with the Pelicans?
Do they trade? Here's the thing. Do the Knicks take a trade where they accept John Wall in the 9th pick or for the number 3 pick?
Okay. Like you said, there's not too much of a difference between 3 and 10. Maybe that makes more sense.
4 and 10.
4 and 10.
4 and 10, I said.
Okay.
Not 3 and 10. 4 and 10. I think Barrett's a game changer. But again, like you said, where have we seen this in the past? That these guys don't always come through where they should be. You usually see the best player in each draft tends to be the 4th or 5th pick, not the number 1 or 2. Usually the 1 overall pick, like with Anthony Davis, is a guarantee. But look where we are with Markelle Fulton, Lonzo Ball. And look where we are with Tatum and De'Aaron Fox from the same draft.
Yeah. Look at Giannis, how far he was picked. Look at Kawhi.
Okay, but that one, I was talking with someone the other day about it. Basketball personnel person was talking about it the other day. Giannis was one of those guys playing in a Greek minor league team, playing 6 minutes a game with grainy film on him, who barely played. All you saw was that he had highlight dunks. That was it, and that he could block shots. The Bucks took a risk because it wasn't a very talented draft. There wasn't a lot of top-tier talent. And either at 15 in the draft, they were getting a guy who's going to be a 10th man on a good team, or you're taking a guy strictly who was never going to play in the NBA, and you're taking on pure ceiling level. And that's what they did. And that's why they got that pick. They looked at it and said, listen, there isn't much talent in this draft. We're going to draft the guy based purely on the ceiling here.
And that's where you got to swing for the home run. You can either strike out or hit the home run. Sometimes you don't need that quarter.
Thon Maker a year later as well. Mm-hmm. And Thon Maker at first people are like, oh, this guy's going to be a superstar. And then you look at him and you're like, oh, okay. Just never really developed. He's a mediocre player in the NBA, 10th, 11th guy on your team. That's what he is. But it's worth taking the risk because you can go for superstars.
Exactly, and they can be franchise changers. Look at how far the Bucks got. I mean, they were a last-second shot away from maybe, winning it in overtime and going to represent the East. You never know. You never know how close something can get. And you saw that the Warriors, they had going up against length and height. It really messed with them. Obviously, Durant's injury changed everything, but you saw Gasol underneath and Siakam. They really kind of dictated how that game was played. It didn't really show itself in the rebounds, at least in the clinching game, but the height was, the game was played differently. So who knows what Giannis could have done under there? Who knows what could have happened with Brook Lopez and the rest of the guys?
And that's the thing is I don't think there's any guarantee. And I think, again, in this draft, I really don't think there's you've got talents in this draft, like a Bol, where Bol could fall to anywhere from 14 to 25 in this draft. I don't think he falls past 20, but let's just say hypothetically he does. He's one of those guys you'll be looking at in a few years going, wow, how did this kid fall this deep? Well, okay, it was his foot injury. He's like 7'5", 7'6". He's super lanky too. Can he add weight to his frame and can he stay healthy? The only reason he's going to fall is because he can't stay healthy. The kid can shoot, he can rebound, he can move. But the question is, can he stay healthy?
Right. And if you see him start falling far enough, maybe the Cavs could take their second first-round pick, package it with J.R. Smith.
If he falls to 26, he's not getting past the Cavs. I'll give you that right now.
Well, I mean, even if the Cavs have him targeted at 20, at 19, at 18. I don't think he gets past Boston at 20.
I think he's a typical Danny Ainge. I think you could see Boston take him as high as 14. If I'm Boston, I probably would take him at 14.
Yeah, because you have the ability with all the picks you have. Go ahead and swing for the fences. See if you can develop a player and turn him into something good. So he's a system guy that really does it for you. Let's get back to number 10. That's the Atlanta Hawks again. What do you see the Hawks doing?
There's a guy like Nazir Little who could come off the board here. I think he's in that Dion Waiters mode.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of Nazir Little at all. He reminds me too much of Dion Waiters / Marvin Williams. You know, that guy who's a sixth man on a great team, but was a sixth man for a reason.
Okay.
You know, which is why I don't like Nazir Little, but he is too high of a talent to let slip, you know, even a couple more picks. There's Jackson Hayes from Texas, too. I don't love Jackson Hayes. He's a good player. You know, this is where I think really everything just starts falling in place. There's also P.J. Washington from Kentucky. You guys, again, I can see Bol coming up all the way up here. You can see a guy like Romeo Langford, but Langford could also fall down to 26 at the Cavs. That's what I'm saying. Now there's so much movement with these guys. I really don't see a difference in talent level. I think now teams are going to be looking for ceiling at this point from 10 on. And that's why I don't love this portion of the draft, because I need to see how the trades shake out. You know, I wanted to say let's do a full lottery, but this is the point now where there's a guy I could have picking at 10 who could go as late as 26, 27 to the Cavs. That's the problem with this part of the lottery, is I just think it's a total crapshoot at this point. Usually you know in drafts, but this kind of reminds me of the draft where the Cavaliers took Anthony Bennett, and, you know, where there was no difference between the guy at the 29th pick as there wasn't the 6th pick.
Okay. So do you want to throw darts here, or do we just want to say we're going to get up to 9?
I don't even want to see the point of throwing darts here, just because all it does is, you know, again, I'll have more understanding. The problem is with the darts, you want to see if either teams are filling in position of need here, or are they filling in position because this is the highest ceiling? And it's hard to get into a general manager's mind at this point and say, are we filling in for need? Are we filling in for ceiling? Because that's what teams are looking at this point. Are you going with the highest potential, even though you already have a player that might play the same position? Or, you know, strictly, you know, are the Timberwolves going to go and take Nazir Little 11 because Jimmy Butler left him, you know, in a trade?
And then there's just unanswered questions at this point. Then let me rephrase it. Let's say instead of doing this, out of the remaining players, if Zak Baris is GM, who are the players that most intrigue you that are left at, you know, starting here at number 10? Out of the rest of them, if you were GM and you had a pick to spend, what would you be swinging at? Who do you like in this group? Not team need, not who could be traded and free agents, etc. Anybody you have a particular highness or interest in that you've watched this past year?
There are guys I like. You know, here's the thing. There are guys I like in this draft. There's like Kevin Porter, who I like from USC. There's Romeo Langford, who's definitely intriguing from Indiana. You know, like I said, Bol is one of those other ones I really like. But again, those guys could be going as late as 20.
Right.
To 26. That's the thing. That's where I say I don't see much of a difference. You know, don't forget, Langford is the guy we were talking about mid-season. The Cavaliers could be picking at 5. Or it could have been as high as the 4th overall pick. That's what I'm saying. There's really no difference between 4 and 23, 4 and 24 in this draft. You know, some teams are going to be based solely on ceiling of a player. For me, at this point in the draft, I will always pick ceiling over mediocre role player. Unless I'm already on a championship team and I need an 8th, 9th man.
Okay.
That's the only way. But if I'm stuck in the middle and I'm stuck in purgatory, I'm drafting a player based on ceiling at that point.
All right. Well, then let's have one final question.
I'm not one to just play. I don't like, you know, Brian, I'm not one to play anything safe. If you have the opportunity to get a top-tier talent, that's my philosophy. I think you look at teams that completely struck out over the years. Again, look at the Bulls. Well, the Cavs, you know, between the Cavs and the Heat, you know, run with LeBron. The Bulls never went out and made that trade to go and improve themselves. They were clearly fixated on being that 50 to 60 win team, you know, every year that couldn't beat LeBron. Okay? You look at Danny Ainge's Celtics that still have not made a title since the KG Pierce team when they shouldn't have in 2010, you know, beating LeBron. They had no business beating LeBron. It was just, you know, we all know what happened and it sucked. But, you know what? They made the finals. They still lost to the Lakers. You know, we've witnessed teams afraid to make the jump, afraid to make the leap. We've witnessed teams that have made the jump and have taken the leap. You know, look at, you know, it doesn't always play out. We look at the Brooklyn Nets. We all know it was for a low ceiling trade anyway. I don't know why they made it. But you've seen teams in the past go out there and make the necessary trades they needed to get up to the top. We witnessed Houston do it with James Harden. It got them to a bunch of conference championship games that they haven't done anything in 5 years because of the Warriors. Next year's their time to shine. You look at the Warriors, the Warriors didn't make any, transcendent trades, nothing. But you witness teams like Oklahoma City go and make a trade for Paul George that brought them to better than where they were. Still not a championship team.
Right.
You look at Minnesota, did it with Jimmy Butler giving up assets. No real great assets, though, to Chicago. I mean, Chicago stinks. Chris Dunn didn't really become much. Zach LaVine's been off on injured. Hasn't been that great. But if you're a team and you're in a position in this draft and you can trade it for a star, you don't want to, Danny Ainge does not want to be sitting and going in this draft with 3 first-round picks, with a late lottery and then 2 later selections. That's the biggest nightmare that could happen to the Celtics. Because they're a good team and those guys will never get playing time, with or without Kyrie Irving. Let's not forget that Celtics team a year ago, without Kyrie, without Gordon Hayward, was a game away from making the championship.
They pushed the Cavs. They pushed the Cavs pretty deep, pretty strong. That was tough.
If they re-sign Rozier in free agency, and they're able to trade Hayward in a couple of picks, look out. The Celtics could be there.
I mean, the East is open, right? I don't think many people have Kawhi re-signing. It is possible, like you said, it's kind of out of the limelight. It could work.
I think Kawhi will re-up for a year in Toronto.
Just see if they could run it back.
Why not? What do you have to lose if you're Kawhi?
Good point. And then you get to
1-1 in Toronto.
Uh-huh.
You spend 1 year with a player option in Toronto.
Okay.
I think that's their best move.
Yeah, the dominoes that fell because of the Durant and the Klay Thompson injuries, it really changed what we were expecting to be a fast and furious free agency signing period. With obviously with the Knicks and the Nets and Kyrie and teaming up.
Imagine if the Lakers would have gone out and signed Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
To pair with Davis and LeBron. That would have been a nightmare scenario for the NBA. I mean, it would have been great for the Lakers. You would have seen them reel off, a healthy Klay Thompson with a healthy LeBron and Davis. This team would be able, I don't care who else are their pieces, but imagine if LeBron had a shooter like Klay Thompson to go along with Davis and Kuzma. My God. That team would be lethal from all points on the floor, even without a point guard.
Yeah, and I fully expect the Lakers to make another big move or two. They're nowhere near done. I think last year...
The Kuzmas are only tradable asset at this point. So they're going to have to get it done via free agency. With $23.7 million in free agency.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think it's going to happen with free agency. I don't think there's much left in the cupboard to trade. 2 final questions for you, Zach. At 26,
Brian.
2 quick questions.
Yeah.
At 26, the one player you would love to see the Cavs end up with, is it Bol Bol?
It's Bol Bol. Or Romeo Langford.
Or Romeo Langford, okay. Or Langford. And then the question of the day. I did a segment on this. I said Toronto clearly won the Kyrie Irving trade. What is your reaction to that?
How would Toronto have won it?
Because it freed the Cavaliers from competing and stomping them like they had year after year after year, like just kind of fizzling in that Eastern Conference championship mode. It got them through the East, which got them a championship. I don't think if Kyrie opts out, I don't think there's any way, even with Kawhi, that they get past the Cavaliers with our big 3.
I think you might be right there, Brian. Yeah, I could see that. I think Toronto got incredibly fortunate. I think Ujiri pounced on the deal, going, this is our one shot to win the East without LeBron being here anymore. Let's go ahead and let's make this move.
And with him getting in trouble, do you think that's, is he going to end up going to run the Washington franchise? What do you think's going to happen with that?
How is Jerry in trouble?
Am I thinking of it was the Raptors GM that got into a pushing match or pushed a cop or hit a cop or something?
I don't see that being that's not a big deal.
Do you think he's going to bolt the franchise on top of it then? Because he got offered the kingdom.
Washington makes him a sizable offer. He's one of those guys who bolted the Nuggets to go to Toronto.
Right.
And he was responsible for bringing all those guys with the Nuggets, Jamal Murray, all those guys were last year. Jokic, all those guys. He essentially built that roster in Denver. I think he's one of the greatest basketball minds in the NBA. If you're looking at best basketball minds in the NBA, I think it's Griff. I think it's Ujiri. I think Pat Riley, but I think Pat Riley's been incredibly stubborn over the last few years.
Yes.
Trying to build, for the wrong don't forget, since LeBron's left, he's had 5 mediocre years. He should have torn it down to studs and never did that.
Right.
And I think it was a huge mistake on his part. I think but Riley getting LeBron in the first place down to Miami was a huge coup for him. I look at Danny Ainge, who's made some very good trades, but Ainge has also been afraid to pull the trigger in a lot of other ones. So it's hard putting Danny Ainge up there now. Ainge has made a lot of good ones. He's also made a lot of, he also hasn't pulled the trigger in a lot of deals. And I think that's Danny Ainge's sticking point is he hasn't been willing to give up some of those picks. I look at other guys around the league. I'm trying to think who else I really, really like and who else I don't really like.
Well, I mean, in history, people
look at Buford and Popovich down in San Antonio, but that's a given.
Right.
You can look at Daryl Morey in Houston, what he's done there, turning a bunch of mediocre talent to getting a star talent down there. To when it was getting Dwight Howard, to getting Chris Paul, to getting James Harden, he's been able to do it all down in Houston. He really has.
And the Warriors, the Warriors front office took a big hit this, during this playoff run with, pushing Kyle Lowry from one of the investors, and then maybe pushing their players to come back from injury too soon. I mean,
you look at Bob Myers. He's done an incredible job as the GM of the Warriors. By whether it was his first year building an incredible bench, I still think Steve Kerr is arguably the best coach in the NBA along with Pop. I know Kerr's had a lot of talent, but what he did in these, without Durant, was simply incredible. They had a limited bench, and I think he did a great job. I really do. I think Kerr's an incredible coach. His system has been replicated now by multiple teams. But he's also a Popovich guy, but runs a totally different style of play than Pop. There are other teams. There are other guys I really like too. I think it's a very, very tough situation in today's NBA. You have to be a big risk taker in order to win. And a lot of guys aren't willing to take the risk because they don't want to lose their jobs. And a lot of guys are content with winning 45 to 50 games a year. Being a perennial playoff team, I think you're going to see Daryl Morey and the Rockets really shake things up this year. I don't know what they have in store yet, but trust me, they'll make a big move.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. And on your way out the door, Zach, because we're going to wrap this up here, just final thoughts on Nick Nurse. I wasn't going to ask you about it, but thinking about it, they made a big move getting rid of Dwayne Casey, and look, it paid off. What were your thoughts on watching him coach?
It did pay off. It paid off big time. You fired the coach of the year.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jerry's got the biggest balls in the NBA when it comes down to it. I mean, look at the moves he's made. Everything he's done, he's made a big-time move.
And it's been working, and it looks like they're turning over the keys to the kingdom over in Washington, trying to give him ownership stake and a whole bunch of things. We'll just have to watch and see how that shakes out. If he's going to take the job, how that's going to play. But having front office competency is so underrated in sports. You don't know how bad it is until you suffer like the Browns did without a competent GM. And then when David Griffin left, people said that was the reason why Kyrie and LeBron couldn't hash it out, because Griffin probably could have made it work. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But that's at least a long-standing feeling that a good GM, someone with experience rather, and relationships, could have kept that together. And stuff like that is priceless when you're dealing with egos the size of NBA superstars. So, all right. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining me on today's program. This is a long time coming. I appreciate it. We have a lot of segments we're going to clip out from the full show and put onto the Unhappy Hour Sports Show YouTube channel, specifically just small clips and segments, and direct you back to the full show on YouTube at The New American Media. So look out for that. Follow Zach on Twitter. He's at Z Baris. That's ZBARIS. Do you have any words of wisdom you want to leave us with this evening, sir?
Nope.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. Go Cavs, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care, Zach.
All right, see you, Brian.
All right, everybody. There he goes, Zak Baris. Much appreciated for him and his time. All right, well, I got some editing to do. I'm going to put this together. The Unhappy Hour _ is our Twitter handle. The Unhappy Hour _ Our flagship is at American _media _. That's our main channel on Twitter. Instagram.com. We're over there at The Unhappy Hour, so link up with us there. Good stuff. and we're going to be rebuilding the TheNewAmericanMedia.com. We have some plans for that site. Long story I'm not going to get into right now. We're going to kind of turn it into something very different from what it is, but those plans have been stalled for logistical reasons. We'll get back to you. Still holding out that we're going to get the vision that's up here, that we can get it to you out there and on your phones over here. So here's to hoping, and here's to hoping that the Cavs can really nail this 2019 NBA draft and continue to build for the future after having a really forgettable 2019 season. So for everybody here at the TNAM Network, I appreciate you, I love you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Peace.
It's the Unhappy Hour.